everybody. Welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe, Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock with you here, recording this on Wednesday. It's about 6:10 on Wednesday when we're recording this. We've got a pretty full Wednesday show for you here. We're going to talk a little bit about the news of the day, and that is, of course, Shedeur Sanders. And then Mary Kay had a chance to catch up with Brian Hoyer, former Browns quarterback, former Patriots quarterback, former St. Ignatius quarterback, all of those great things. So you're going to hear that in the second part of the podcast. And before we send it to that, Mary Kay, I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about it as well. But first, let's talk about Shedeur Sanders, because he is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns in Las Vegas, as expected. Kevin Stefanski made it official today. Mary Kay, we got to hear from Shedeur Sanders. What was something I guess, this could just be general, but even just from Shedeur, something that stood out from what he said, what you took away from today, anything Shedeur related?
Really, my number one takeaway from the Shedeur interview is the fact that he is supremely confident heading into this football game. He says, I know I am the guy, and you can't miss this moment. And I think those are pretty big, bold statements for a fifth-round rookie to make. Now, we know he is son of prime time. So, of course, we're going to have lots of flash and razzle-dazzle, and he's going to make big, bold statements. And good for him. I had no problem with that at all. I thought it was kind of fun. He does have that fun, playful side to himself. He's got that star power, and I thought it was on full display in this interview. And so what? Let him cook right now. Let him have his little bit of fun. This is his moment to go out and shine. He tumbled all the way from projected first round of the draft to the fifth round of the draft, and then he was the fourth team quarterback all of training camp. Now he's in the spotlight in Las Vegas, no less. There's going to be an F1 race going on out there. There's Shedeur out there. And he's just back in that primetime spotlight. He's excited, and I hope, for Browns fans' sakes, that he puts on a show.
Yeah, Ashley, we've sat through so many Shedeur pressers, and they're never boring. They're never just bland, say the right things. Even if sometimes it feels like he's trying to, he just kind of can't help himself a little bit. And that's fun. And again, we'll see. You either go out on Sunday and you back it up, or you don't. And guys will be doing the Rolex celebration, right? They'll be doing the wrist up celebration. So, whatever. It makes for a good Wednesday. It's just who he is. And I think to an extent, he just sort of has to be who he is. He can't fake it. He's got to be authentic Shedeur Sanders to make this work.
Yeah, I tend to like when guys are a bit more brash like that, especially quarterbacks, because I think so much of succeeding in the NFL in general, you have to have that attitude. You have to have that belief in yourself, even if it seems unlikely or ridiculous to somebody on the outside. You have to believe you are that guy, no matter where you were taken in the draft, no matter what your pedigree is. You have to go out there thinking you can do it. If you're doubting yourself, how are your teammates or your coaches or fans going to believe in you? So, I'm not surprised that this is what Shedeur Sanders sounded like, what his messaging was heading into his first start. I said in our video, it reminded me a lot of his combine availability back in February in Indy. And that was the first time that I heard him talk in person. And I just remember him talking about, all he knows is winning and helping turn college programs around, right? Looking at what he did at Jackson State and then at Colorado. So this is somebody who came into the NFL with that belief in himself. And I think we saw it today on Wednesday ahead of this first start.
Now, the flip side of that is when it comes down to Sunday, Mary Kay, I think one of the challenges that the Browns have is they need to make sure that it's great when he talks like that on Wednesday. You maybe want to dial it back a little bit on Sunday as far as your play style. And what I mean by that is, we know Shedeur loves to hunt the big plays. We know he loves to hunt the highlights, and that's great. When it's there, take it. But I think the Browns coaching staff is probably going to be driving home to him a lot this week. Hey, take the easy stuff. Make sure if you go to Las Vegas and just win this football game, even if it's not spectacular and it's not highlight after highlight after highlight, that's enough. Just figure out a way to go win this football game. And if there's opportunities for those highlight moments, great. And I think there will be. But beyond that, make sure you're not taking sacks. Make sure you're taking the easy stuff. Make sure you're getting the ball out quickly and not getting caught looking somewhere where maybe there isn't a play to be made. So that's sort of the flip side of this. Is it's fun on Wednesday, but when he's actually playing on Sunday, they have to kind of balance that swagger with him just being an effective, efficient quarterback.
Absolutely 100%. They value game management here a lot, and they certainly value a quarterback who does not turn the ball over a lot. And we saw that he got a little outside of himself in that second half against the Ravens. He threw one interception, almost threw another interception, but Kyle Hamilton dropped it. And then he also lost the ball on a strip sack. So that was just in 6 possessions. He cannot play outside of himself. He's got to stay within himself and not try to do too much. He can't get larger than life and try to be legendary in this football game. He really just has to try to kind of walk before he can run, take the shots that are there, of course, but not try to do too much, because when you press, that's when you get yourself into mistakes. And I'm sure that they're going to emphasize to him over and over again this week to not be throwing interceptions and not turn the ball over. But you have to find the sweet spot between making sure that you're coaching your quarterback not to turn the ball over, but that you also don't coach out of them the things that they do well. And the thing that Shedeur does well is put the ball on the money. And so he's got to have the confidence to just let it rip. That's one of his fortes.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits of them being able to kind of sit here and game plan and put together this whole thing around him, is they can sit here in these practices and they can say, on this play, here's your reads, here's where you're going to go. And then they can say, look, if we get to this situation, 2nd and 2 or something like that, this is going to be a shot play. We're going to call a shot play here. And so just being able to kind of game plan all of that around Shedeur Sanders, it just feels to me, Ashley, like that's going to make it all, that's such a big part of this, is just laying out to him this week. This is exactly how we're drawing it up. Just be patient. We'll find you those opportunities, and here's where they're going to be.
Yeah, and I think it was even after the game on Sunday when Shedeur talked after the loss to the Ravens, like even then he was anticipating having this whole week to prep, and with things he does well and things he likes to do being added into the game plan. I mean, this is standard. And again, when we talked about the possibility of like, should they make him the backup? Should they just make it Bailey Zappi and wait? Like, that was going in the con side of the ledger for me. Like this idea of if he became the backup, he was going to have to go in and execute a game plan that was really designed for Dillon Gabriel and not for him. And that is what we saw on Sunday. And I think there are different elements you're going to see. You know, we've speculated, are we going to see more looks to a guy like Gage Larbadan, right? Who he's worked with in these extra hungry dog periods that we've talked about. He's thrown to Gage maybe more than any other pass catcher. Gage, I know, joked today that he was maybe even more excited than Shedeur himself was when the announcement was official that Shedeur was starting. So, like, are you going to see more of that stuff? The good thing is they have this full week. And I do think that's why it was important to, like, make this call this earlier in the week and not just, like, wait and see if Dillon Gabriel is going to clear the protocol tomorrow. I think that wouldn't have been good for Dillon Gabriel either, to have to go out there without a week of practice. I think that can be so detrimental for a rookie too.
So I was thinking about this, and as we talk about things that he said today that stood out to us, there was something, as I thought more about it, Mary Kay. Obviously, one of the storylines all season long has been this idea of Shedeur doing these hungry dog periods, like, you know, with Gage and all of those guys, working the scout team, right? And he got asked about those things. And I actually think one of my really positive takeaways is, for as much as that stuff has been getting talked up from coaches and teammates and all of that, Shedeur kind of downplayed those experiences a little bit. He kind of, like, he acknowledged, like, it's just different on Sundays, right? Like when you're running the scout team, you're on a card. And I mean, this isn't exactly what he said, but this is what he was getting at, right? Like you're on a card, you can't get hit, all of that stuff. I thought the acknowledgement, I think that was really encouraging. Just this acknowledgement of, yes, I've been getting this work on the scout team. Yes, I've been getting these hungry dog periods and this time with Kevin and all of that. But I also know that when I go out there on Sundays, and certainly he has some real world experience with that after a half against Baltimore. When I go out there on Sundays, it's going to be completely different. Like it's going to be faster. It's just going to be different than what I've been doing. And I think that's I think that's a positive that he stood up there and kind of just took the narrative his own way and just said, like, hey, that's great, but that's not the same as playing on Sundays.
Right. Well, he knows he joined the big leagues now, right? I mean, it's not hungry dog time anymore for Shedeur Sanders. This is put on your big boy pants and go try to make a completion against Max Crosby, all pro Max Crosby, right? So this is going to be a tremendous challenge for him. It's on the road where the Browns have not been able to win. They've lost 13 straight on the road. So he's going to have to snap that streak. And he's just going to have to go out there and against many, many odds, try to pull off this victory. And if he can do it, I think that's really going to show something. If he can go out there to Vegas on the road, a West Coast game like you've been talking about all week, Ashley, pull this off in his first week of practicing with the starters, I think that would be a remarkable first start for Shedeur Sanders, and I think it would earn him another one.
And the opportunity is going to be there against this Raiders team. Now we know that they're going to watch that Ravens film and they're going to figure out they're probably going to blitz a lot. They're going to test him. They're going to make him deal with that stuff. But the flip side of that is the Browns defense, just like they've done all season, the Browns defense should be able to give this offense some opportunities, should be able to give them some short fields, should be able to get to Geno Smith and come up with some sacks. Maybe the offense scores some points for him today, or as the defense scores some points for him. So that's part of this too, is like this Baltimore knew what they wanted to do, and that's just a better football team than Las Vegas. So even the things Las Vegas does well, it's just not going to be to the level and to the precision that Baltimore does it. You're playing another 2-win football team. So I think that creates opportunities that could help him, Ashley. No matter what the stats, I know there's some okay defensive stats there with Vegas. Obviously, Max Crosby's a beast, all of that stuff. But because of the level of competition, because it's a little bit of a step down from the Ravens, I think that's going to help him too.
Yeah, it should help him, right? I mean, I guess the flip side of that is, like, I thought playing the Jets would help Dillon Gabriel. So we talk about it all the time. That Jets game, for I think all of us, just made us recalibrate a lot and how we think about this team and how we think about predicting this team. And what I will say is the thing that doesn't change is the defense does always give you a chance, I think, especially at this stage of the schedule. The problem is this is not the 4-6 Browns taking on the 2-8 Raiders. This is the 2-8 Browns playing the 2-8 Raiders. And you are what your record says you are, even though the Browns have been close a handful of times. And look, the reality is, the defense, yes, will give you a chance, and they gave them a chance against Baltimore, and it still wasn't enough. So you do kind of have to hope, okay, maybe the fact that Baltimore is just a better team, that they are a division opponent who knows the Browns really well, that I would argue knows Jim Schwartz and his defense maybe better than most teams. They, over the last 3 years, I think, have game planned for that Browns defense better than even the Bengals or Steelers have. So you do add all that in. It just makes it more unpredictable. On top of Shedeur starting and that sort of being this big unknown that's hanging out there. Will it provide a spark? Will he be able to hold this together and run an offense that is going downfield more? We just don't know that yet, but I do think it makes me sit here on Wednesday evening at 6:30, and I'm not sure what I'm going to pick in this game when we record our preview pod in about 24 hours from now.
Yeah, this is a tough one. And I think the challenge is always, for as much as we talk about, okay, this team's not very good, that team's not very good, right? Obviously, the Browns are not very good, but they're a 2-8 record. But also just in the NFL, the talent gap isn't that big. It never really is. These are still NFL players on the other side of that ball. And if you give them opportunities, and I'm sure in that building in Las Vegas, they are telling their defensive backs, Shedeur Sanders is going to give you opportunities. Take advantage of them, right? Don't pull a Kyle Hamilton who probably never wants to play in Huntington Bank Field again because he can't catch a football there. Don't do that. Intercept the football. He's going to give you opportunities. I'm sure they're hammering that home with their DBs, especially if they're able to get pressure. And that is what makes this so hard, Mary Kay, because the Raiders are a bad football team. But even bad football teams in the NFL find ways to win games, especially against a rookie quarterback making his first start.
Yes, absolutely. And they are going to give Shedeur Sanders all he can absolutely handle. Now, what the Browns are going to do is, and they will never say this, but they're going to dial back the playbook. He will not even have all of the things that Dillon Gabriel had at his disposal in the playbook. They're going to tear a few pages out of there that they feel that Shedeur Sanders can feel very, very comfortable with. And they're going to work with him throughout the week and talk to him and communicate with him and see exactly the routes he wants to throw, what he likes, what he doesn't want to run. And they're going to design it just for him. So he's going to go in there with a good script for the first 15 plays or so. And then for the rest of it, he's going to have choices that are going to make him feel confident. And the good thing about him is I do think that when you can throw the ball with the accuracy that he does, I think it can make up for a lot of ills. I mean, if you can put the ball where it needs to go, when it needs to get there, then you're going to make some plays and you're going to find some completions. And he's going to have some time, and he might not have that time because we don't even know which tackles are going to be playing in this game yet. We don't know if he's going to have Cam Robinson and Jack Conklin, who were limited in practice on Wednesday with their knee injuries suffered in the Ravens game. We don't know if one of them is going to start and the other one isn't. And then the other thing is David Njoku sat out on Wednesday with a knee injury. Now, David is one of those warrior type of players that, he can miss some practice and still go out there and play in the game. And they're going to really need him for blitz pickup and for chipping help and all of those kinds of things. So I'm sure if there's any way he can possibly play, he will play. But right now there is some uncertainty about whether or not you're going to have those three guys.
Yeah, there we go. It'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. Ashley, you've got to make your pick in 24 hours. I'm very excited to see where this goes when you do make that pick.
Do you know what you're picking yet?
No. I haven't decided yet.
See,
no.
We're all in the same boat this week.
Yeah. We'll talk about it on Thursday when we record the preview pod. Okay, we are going to take a break. When we come back on the other side, Mary Kay, you had a chance to talk to Brian Hoyer. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about kind of what they can expect in that interview?
Well, I think it was a great time to be able to catch up with Brian Hoyer because I talked to him a lot about Shedeur. I talked to him a lot about Dillon Gabriel and just how that whole thing is going down. And Brian Hoyer isn't just a popular former quarterback in the NFL. He's a Cleveland native. He went to St. Ignatius. He started games here. He won games here. And so he has a unique perspective on the Cleveland Browns. So I talked to him about the Browns' current quarterback situation. I asked him, and this was something that was standing out to me. When he was here, he had the circus of Johnny Manziel. And so I talked to him about, can you relate to what Dillon has had to go through with having the Shedeur Sanders circus in town? So he was very interesting about that topic. So we covered a lot of ground. I also asked him a little bit about Johnny Manziel and some of the remarks that he's made lately. And then lastly, I asked him about another former Browns quarterback. So I think you'll enjoy the interview. I hope you will. And leave us some comments and let us know.
Yeah, well, now I'm excited. I haven't had a chance to listen yet. I'm going to do that as soon as we're done with this part. So now I'm ready to go listen to this interview. So with that said, I'll let you guys go. We're going to take a break. When we come back on the other side, Mary Kay's interview with Brian Hoyer.
Brian Hoyer is joining us on behalf of DraftKings Sportsbook. Fans can visit DraftKings all season long for the latest Browns odds and promotions like a touchdown parlay boost this Sunday for all customers. So thank you, Brian, for joining us here on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Like you said, I'm glad to be pairing up with DraftKings. And I know, look, former Clevelander, former Cleveland Brown, I know the season hasn't gone the way people have wanted it to, but now with a little excitement, Shedeur is probably going to play, and you can keep it interesting and fun and gamble responsibly with DraftKings. So I'm excited to partner up with them.
Yeah, that's great. And I just wanted to start there, of course, with Shedeur Sanders and what your thoughts are on what you saw from him on Sunday. What were your thoughts about that?
Look, I'll just start with this. Everyone just needs to settle down about the situation. I understand it's kind of a tinderbox, right? Because of the situation that the Browns are dealing with. They drafted two quarterbacks. Look, it's not easy for anyone to come into a game cold off the bench, especially against a Ravens defense, and perform well. And so I know a lot's been made about how many reps did he get, the game plan, all of those things. That's all going to be put to bed this week if he gets a full week of practice underneath his belt and a game plan that's suited towards him. And then we can really sit there and try to evaluate Shedeur. I think the one thing you saw was a lot of the stuff that he did in college. And I said this in the pre-draft process, looking at him. The one thing that he was going to have to improve on is not trying to escape out of the back of the pocket. I mean, the guys in the NFL, look at what Myles Garrett has done to opposing quarterbacks. These guys are just too big, too fast, and that's where they want you to go. Where they don't want you to go is step up into the pocket and make throws. And he did a good job of that, I think, on that one deep in cut that he hit across the middle. And so he's just going to have to learn that there's certain things that you kind of fall back on your autopilot, especially when you haven't played at the professional level yet. You could practice all you want. You can play in the preseason. The regular season is a different animal. And so I think that's one thing. If I'm Coach Stefanski and that staff this week, I'm emphasizing, sure, you got to step up. Okay. You got to step up, keep your eyes up and make those throws because you'll be more successful, right? That's where you have to live. And ultimately, those are some of the things when you're a rookie, you haven't got a ton of reps, you get thrust into that situation, you're always going to revert back to what your baseline is. And so this week, with a week of repetition under his belt, hopefully that's what they're coaching him to do. That should allow him to have a little more success this week.
Yeah, and did you see, I think, Brian, my reigning thought about a quarterback is when the game is on the line at the end of the game, that's what matters. It almost doesn't matter what happened before that, but what happens is, can you win the game with the game on the line? And I thought he made a really nice throw in the end zone there to Gage. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think the game is too big for Shedeur, right? That was a term that Bill Belichick would use a lot. Like, is the game too big for someone? This is a guy who grew up around it, right? He handles himself accordingly. The pressure is not going to get to Shedeur. I don't think that that's the thing at all. And so it's more about going out and executing the best that he can. And you're right. I mean, I know they were able to bat that ball away at the end there, but I don't think that there's going to be like this scenario where the game overwhelms him, which you've seen with a lot of guys in the past who maybe come in and all of a sudden they're playing and it's just too much to handle. I don't see that happening with Shedeur.
Okay. So you see some things to build on. You see some potential in him as possibly a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Well, I think the thing that, look, if you're drafted into the NFL, and I have a little bit different perspective, right? I was undrafted, worked my way into being a starting quarterback, not only there in Cleveland, but in Houston, San Francisco. If you're in the NFL, you have the traits that are capable of being an NFL quarterback. It's what do you do with them? And I think that's the one thing that you're going to want to see from Shedeur. And like my biggest thing is people need to understand the reps, the topic and discussion over the reps when you have a rookie starting quarterback, he is going to get every single rep in practice because that's what he needs. And so like when I backed up Mac Jones in New England, he took every single rep. Because he's seeing things for the first time in practice that he's going to have to go out and execute in the game. When I was backing up Tom Brady and he was a veteran, and there was days that he needed to take off to rest, like I would take a lot of reps. And so I think the reason Dillon Gabriel got every rep is because he's a rookie. He's still learning. And so that didn't provide the opportunity for Shedeur to get those reps, right? So when you trade Joe Flacco away, you basically throw your young guys to the wolves and say, figure it out. We're going to be there to coach you along the way, but you got to figure it out. And so the one thing I've always said is as a backup quarterback, you almost have to go above and beyond. This is the NFL, right? This isn't college. This isn't high school. No one's going to be there to hold your hand. And so for me, I would do extra reps mentally as the practice was going on or in the film room or after practice. I'd get a few of the guys at receiver or tight end who didn't get a ton of reps and try to, walk through the practice script with them. And so those are some of the things that you have to learn as a young player. And luckily for me, I learned behind Tom Brady. So I couldn't have asked for a better situation. And so the thing that Shedeur, when it's good, it's going to look good and it's going to look like he can be a starting quarterback. And so he's got to try to eliminate the bad plays. And I think number one, that starts with trying to run out of the back of the pocket. That's Bill Belichick used to tell me and Tom, when you go out of the back of the pocket, bad things are only going to happen. You aren't Josh Allen. You're not Lamar Jackson. And I think that's the reality that is going to kick in for Shedeur. He was athletic enough to do that at the college level. There's only a few guys when you look around the league, like I mentioned, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Drake May now has been able to show it a little bit, but he does a very good job of stepping up into the pocket. And I think that's what he'll be able to gain the most improvement when he realizes that and is efficient with his throw. I think he can make every throw. There's no doubt about that. And I think the one thing I would say him compared to Dillon Gabriel, I think he can push the ball down the field more than Gabriel was able to do.
Now, I have to tell you, there have been things about this situation that have reminded me of when you were here and Johnny came in, because I have watched Dillon Gabriel have to try to function and flourish in an environment where there is a circus going on
Yeah.
around him. When we are on the road, there are times where there are just rows of fans chanting for Shedeur. And in this past game, fans were once again chanting for Shedeur and booing Dillon Gabriel when he's out there as a rookie trying to find his way. And it just reminds me of how you had to deal with that whole Johnny madness that went on when you were here. Do you see some similarities at all?
Yeah, and I feel worse for Dillon Gabriel because he's just a rookie trying to find his way, right? I mean, and this ultimately goes back on whoever made the decision in that organization to say, we like Dillon Gabriel, we're going to draft him in what was it, the third round, right?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
now all of a sudden Shedeur falls. We're going to draft him too. Like, how did they think that that was going to play out? It wasn't like you drafted, some other guy who didn't have this huge fanfare or persona to have to develop along Dillon Gabriel. No, immediately you put that pressure on Dillon Gabriel to when eventually, if he took over as a starting quarterback, to have to fend off a guy who has a huge fan base. And so that's not Dillon Gabriel's fault. That's not Shedeur Sanders' fault. That's whoever decided to make that decision. And I know it's been very well discussed on who actually pulled the trigger on that. But whoever made that decision didn't have the foresight, which you would hope that maybe they would have, having dealt with similar situations in the past, to not put their team in that position. But ultimately, that's where they're at now. And now they have to learn how to deal with it. And so, look, for me, it was difficult, right? Playing for your hometown team. That's what every kid dreams of being. And it was going well, but it was hard to try to fend that off all while being a starting quarterback in the league. It's the hardest position in all of sports. And not just because of what you do on Sundays, it's a 24/7, 365 days of the year responsibility. And when you add on top of that people in your own organization who are rooting against you or your own fan base because they want to see someone else play, I don't wish that upon anyone. It's too much. It's a heavy weight to bear, and I can't imagine as a rookie, having to deal with that.
Yeah. So you have probably already thought about that he stepped into this sort of similar situation where you have someone larger than life that everybody is
Oh yeah.
clamoring for, right? I mean, there are only so many people, so many quarterbacks that come into the league with that kind of with that kind of circus noise around them, right? Johnny was one of
Yeah.
them. Shedeur is one of them. Tim Tebow was one of them. There are not
Right.
many, right? So I was wondering if that, had occurred to you that.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the player's fault. Like everyone always asks me about Johnny. I never had any like that was not Johnny's fault that we were all in that situation. That was a decision by the Cleveland Browns organization, whether it was Jimmy Haslam, Ray Farmer, Alex Shiner, whoever it may be. Like that's the hard part. You have to separate the different levels of the business, right? Like I never had any hard feelings towards Johnny Manziel. He didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for it. That was someone well above our pay grade that made those decisions. And as I said, you would think some people would maybe learn from experience, but they just couldn't help themselves. I think like when they're sitting there and they're like, man, Shedeur's there. We're not really sure about Dillon. We're not really sure about, are we going to bring Flacco back? We got Kenny, like, that's, and ultimately that goes back to Deshaun Watson not working out, right? Like every, there's a domino effect here. Had Deshaun Watson worked out, like you're not even in this situation. But now you're strapped for cash because of how much you're paying Deshaun. You got to accumulate as many different quarterbacks as you can at a small price. And so that's the situation that they got themselves into. And now you just have to figure out a way to get out of it.
Well, and this brings me to, if you don't mind, and I know you don't have anything against Johnny, and I'm not going to drag you into the whole, like, some of the stuff that Johnny has kind of said about you and the quarterback
Mhm.
and everything, because I think that, he has been saying that for so long. But what I did want to ask you about, for the most part, with Johnny is the fact that his latest sort of beef is that it's, he hated Cleveland and it was Cleveland's fault and everything had to do with the city of Cleveland, why he was not successful. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I don't know about the city of Cleveland, but I don't disagree with him when it comes to the organization. I don't think the organization put him in any chance to succeed by doing what they did. I honestly don't. And so I don't disagree with him on there. I don't know about the city of Cleveland, being a native Clevelander myself. But, I was kind of interacting with some fans yesterday on X. And I said, ultimately, I want to see the Cleveland Browns do well because it's my hometown team. It was a dream of a lifetime to play for them. But until they get someone in there who can settle that position down, it's got to kill them to watch Baker play the way he plays right now. And I get it, people mature and grow and all of those things. But you had a guy there who's an MVP, at least this season and going into last season, was in the MVP talks, right? And for whatever reason, they decided to move on for them. And so ultimately, the organization has failed the fans and the quarterbacks that have come through there. And until they can right that ship, it'll just be more of the same. I don't care if Myles Garrett gets 30 sacks a year. I look at a guy like Joe Thomas who suffered through all of that and stayed loyal to that organization. And you just think about a guy like that, like, you know, does he look back and say, man, I loved playing for the Browns, but I would have loved to win something once, even an AFC championship game or things like that. And so someone in that organization has to stop the bleed, so to speak, and figure out how to handle that situation the right way. And so I'm not going to disagree with Johnny. I don't think the situation that the Browns put him in allowed him to even be successful.
Okay. And then, of course, they are going to be heading into the 2026 draft with two first round picks
Yeah.
and another shot at this. So, what are your thoughts on that? The fact that they're probably going to go out and try to find their franchise quarterback again.
Well, I said this around the draft time. It seems like they already had their mind made up when they were in this draft that they were going to accumulate picks for next year's draft, right? You trade back and let the Jaguars select Travis Hunter and accumulate more picks. But someone another team's doing that too, and that's the New York Jets. And so now you're going to have to be in competition. And look, I haven't gotten there yet. I don't watch as much college football as I used to, but there's not going to be like what last year's draft was, where there was a Caleb Williams and there was a Jaden Daniels and there was a Drake May and a JJ McCarthy and like all these blue chip names coming out. I mean, from what I've seen, this Mendoza kid I really like. He actually reminds me a lot of Drake May, not just the way he plays, but the way he carries himself. So I would imagine that the quarterback hungry teams who have kind of accumulated this draft capital are going to be fighting over that one guy. And after that, I don't know. It's a crapshoot. And to the point, like, who I would have loved for the Browns to draft instead of Shedeur was Will Howard. Like, it's a guy who wouldn't have brought any baggage. You could have still had Dillon Gabriel, and the guy was a winner, right? And I think he could have developed. You wouldn't have had to play him. It wouldn't have caused the drama that's going on there now. And by all accounts, and I always judge this, and I love that he's able to do it now. John Gruden does these quarterback classes of these kids that are coming out of college. He raved about Will Howard. And I had already liked Will Howard based on his success at Ohio State, watching him, how he carried himself. And when John Gruden gives you that stamp of approval, um, I feel pretty good about it. But think about how different that situation would have been if it was Will Howard in the fifth round as opposed to Shedeur. But now they've put themselves in this circus, as you call it, and they got to figure out a way. And honestly, the best thing is for Shedeur to go out and play. And one way or another, you're going to see, and I think ultimately as you head into that draft, you need to know I would say, what Dillon Gabriel is at this point. It could get better. I don't think it would get much worse, but you need to see Shedeur for an extended amount of time. So, going into the draft, like, what are our plans? Is Shedeur part of those plans? So I think it's actually perfect timing that he's going to get an opportunity to play. And hopefully for him and for the Browns, it pays off and he goes out there and can be a quality starting quarterback because it could settle that position for a little bit.
Yeah, it sure is going to be interesting. And then there's another Browns quarterback that I wanted to ask you about, Brian, and that is Bernie Kosar. You may have
Yep.
seen, obviously, that he just underwent a liver transplant, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you got to know him here. I'm sure you felt Bernie's support when you were here, and another hometown guy that wanted to come here and played excellent quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. What are your thoughts on Bernie right now?
Yeah, I've been in touch with him recently and just texted him last week. And so to see the news that he got his transplant is so amazing. And look, I texted him. I said, just hang tough in there like you did in the pocket back in the day when I was watching you. You know, keep fighting. He's got such a positive attitude and mindset about it. And so he's been in my thoughts and prayers for a long time. And Mary Kay, you'll appreciate this. You know, when I first got to Cleveland to play quarterback, one of the first people to reach out was Bernie Kosar, which to me, that was, I had the number 19 jersey in the backyard when I was a kid. That's the guy I wanted to be growing up. And so to be able to create and establish that relationship with him over the years, and he would call me after the games, oh man, I loved how you high load that corner. His football acumen was so high. And then we would always get a kick out of sharing Belichick stories too, right? He would tell me about Bill. I would tell him, oh, Bill still talks about you, you know, running that conditioning test. And so happy to see that he's doing well, and we'll continue to pray for him as well.
Oh, that's great. I figured you were probably thinking a lot about him, and I know how special he was to you. And of course, you know what he means to this whole entire city of
For
Cleveland.
sure.
The same way that you did when you were here playing, and Cleveland really embraced you too. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us today. This was fantastic. You know, Cleveland absolutely loves you, misses you, and we hope to see you around here very soon.
All right. Thanks, Mary Kay.
Take care.